Assalamu Alaikum and welcome to Salam Media. I'm your host, Fazlin Fransman-Taliep. Tonight, we are unpacking the Freedom Flotilla, which is set to challenge the enduring blockade that is suffocating Gaza and to ensure, obviously, the much-needed delivery of aid. Now, as we stand on the precipice of the departure of the 2024 Freedom Flotilla, we know that the situation in Gaza is dire. What was once just a blockade has obviously evolved into a genocide, with aid being used and weaponized. And so, therefore, the urgency to lift the blockade has become even more pressing. Tonight, we are honored to be joined by four remarkable activists who will soon embark on the Freedom Flotilla. We have with us Susan Smith, who is the director at Fellowship of Reconciliation USA. We also have Carlos Michaud, who's an activist from San Francisco Bay. We have Maria Lewis, who's also an activist from San Francisco Bay. And then we also have Hiba Zakaria, who is an Egyptian-Turkish journalist and media researcher. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to Salam Media. Okay, cool. So Susan, we'll start with you. The Freedom Flotilla, I think for many people, represents a form of resistance, a resistance in a time where politically, at least in the global north, if one would to put it that way, there is a normative narrative around what is happening in Gaza and what is happening in Palestine. And the implication of that, obviously, is that the blockade stays in place. What do you think this particular flotilla, in terms of its symbolic essence with regards to resistance, actually symbolizes for all freedom-loving and justice-loving people around the world?
Thank you, Sister Fadlin. I think you pretty much summarized it. Clearly, the hearts, the minds, and the souls of people around the world are with the Palestinian people. And in fact, what is happening in Palestine to the Palestinian people and the people in Gaza in particular is symbolic and emblematic of the oppression of all peoples of color across the world, whether it's in Central and South America or Africa or Asia. Black and brown and indigenous people all over the world are being exploited. The United States has military bases, something like 800 spread throughout the world. So in fact, what is happening to Gaza and Palestine is not exceptional, it's the norm. But because, for one thing, it's in the Holy Land, and because of the absolute live streaming in our face obscenity, the nature of this genocide taking place in front of our eyes, we cannot deny it. The entire world sees it. This actually implores all of us, and I'll speak for myself in particular, to do something. And I have, for the past 7 months, I have marched, demonstrated in front of the White House in the United States, tried to seek arrest, lobbied my congressional officials, went to vigils, donated. I've done everything I possibly can. And so now what this flotilla represents for me is an opportunity and honor to put my body on the line, to do everything I possibly can for the beloved people of Gaza and for the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Susan. Carlos and Maria, to yourselves, you guys are activists in San Francisco Bay, and historically that particular area is known for activism. Why do you think it was important for you guys to participate in this Freedom Flotilla, And I asked that question in light of the prevailing narrative politically in your country.
I think that, as two individuals who have been very involved in an area of the country that has been extremely involved in standing up for Palestine, we've been involved with direct action, shutting down the Bay Bridge, shutting down the Golden Gate Bridge, shutting down SFO, shutting down freeways. And we have given our politicians no rest. We've been outside of Nancy Pelosi's house at 6 a.m. On New Year's morning. We've been back numerous times. We have constantly followed our politicians and tried to hold them to account, to make them hear the voice of the people, of the global majority that stands on the right side of history and stands against the powerful few. And it's been an honor to be part of that and to make our voices heard. Unfortunately, as we all know, that has not been enough to dissuade them from continuing to fund this genocide. And so, as we are not being listened to when we take to the streets, we must take to the seas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's been incredibly powerful to see the actions happening right now on campuses across the United States in particular. And we want to shout them out and emphasize that part of why we're going to deliver this aid, and we are also going to emphasize how unjust and, quite frankly, absolutely insane it is that the same power committing this genocide gets to control how aid is getting into Gaza. The same power that is dropping these bombs, that is intentionally starving the people of Gaza, all aid has to be approved by them. And part of the purpose of the flotilla is to challenge that and to say, no, the fox cannot be allowed to guard the hen house. Israel is using famine as a tool of genocide. It is counting how many calories it lets in order to keep the people of Gaza on the brink of starvation in order to prevent resistance. And it is a travesty of justice and of human rights. And we want to emphasize that this isn't just a humanitarian crisis. This is a political crisis and an intentional genocide that is being committed. And I think that that is a really important part of what we're bringing to force a political crisis for our home country, for the United States, which has the power to stop this right now. Our government has the power to stop this. And they say, Biden gives all this lip service saying we need more aid needs to get in. If he wanted more aid to get in, he could do it tomorrow. And part of what we're going for is to demonstrate that, he has this plan to build this pier off the coast of Gaza, and it's supposed to take months to construct. And he says, we're trying our best to get the aid in. We are showing that us as civilian peace activists with no professional experience have come up with a plan to deliver this aid within days. We can get this aid there within days. It is not a logistical obstacle, it is a political obstacle. And it's time that our politicians live up to the rhetoric that they're putting out there.
Hiba, to you, Salam Alaykum. So, as a journalist, we've seen that much of the Western mainstream media has covered the genocide in Gaza in a very particular way. Some of them have even refused to utilize the word genocide. From your side, why do you think it was very important for you as a journalist to participate in this Freedom Flotilla? And what do you anticipate as a journalist the challenges will be for you?
Yes, Salam Alaykum. How are you, everybody? I hope that my voice is clear enough because now I am somehow in open place. So my voice is clear, okay?
Yes,
okay?
All good.
Yes,
all good.
that's okay. That's okay. So actually, as you mentioned, there is a lot of misleading in traditional media, especially in Western. And actually, in Arab world as well, there is like maybe they can't mislead people about what happens in Gaza, but at the same time, the justification of why it happens, according to the regime in each country and its relationship with the Israeli occupation, for example, normalization, and about all of these issues actually. So it's not easy to join, and actually we still have some obstacles about be on boat. So as a journalist, I can see it's my it's my duty as a human being at the first hand, but also as a journalist after Israeli occupation killed 141 journalists in Gaza during these 7 months. And actually, many of them were my friends. So, Alhamdulillah, may Allah please their souls and accept them. So I feel it's like my duty to continue their job, to open the eyes, to release, to give the right narrative, because the truth narrative, because as you know, the Israeli occupation always manipulates the narrative through media and also through academia, and it's very important, media and academia, because you know, if you watch something like Newsy, it's changed day by day. It's very fast to lose the value of the news, because it's everything happens very fast. But when you have like documentary, it stay more time. But when you have a research, it affects the mind of the decision makers and next generation. So they are working on that during the last 7 months. They not only destroying Gaza, they also destroy the truth narrative. Yes, so they produced a lot of documentary about what happened since 7 October until now, with their own narrative and their own perspective, and also some research, some reports, academic reports. So this is what I mentioned here. I feel me as a journalist and a media researcher, and people like me in the same profession, we should put ourselves not only on the boat, like on the front line in face of Israel occupation and the forces, but also in the front line of the Israeli propaganda as well.
Heba, you touch on a valid point, and Susan, I want to throw it to you, just in the context of being on the front line. You've spoken, I think, about a lot of the activism that you've done over the last few months, which is commendable, of course. But obviously, this is slightly different. There is a security factor. There's a risk factor to this flotilla. And I say that based on history, based on what we've seen, the response from the Israeli government towards the flotilla in the past. So, from your side, why do you think, over and above what you've done, it was important to escalate it to this particular point, and be on the front line when it is actually such a possibly a dangerous mission to undertake?
Yeah, I think directing that question to me as American is quite appropriate, because frankly speaking, all of what's happening could not be happening were it not for the United States aiding and abetting and funding for the past 75 years or so what has been happening, starting with the genocide that took place in 1948, the Nakba, and the creation of the State of Israel by essentially white nation states on top of what was already an indigenous population, which comprised at that time approximately 90% of them were Christian and Muslim, not Jewish, and then to divide the country not quite half and half, and then to give the larger half to this small minority that then continued to go in wave after wave and ethnically cleanse and expel and eradicate the existing indigenous population. I mean, if we can say logically, for example, of what the United States did to the indigenous people of America, of Turtle Island, wiping out 99% of the Native Americans, the First Nation people of the United States, that was a genocide. But for some reason, a lot of people, particularly in the United States and in Western world, cannot say that what Israel has, the influx of Jewish people from Europe in particular, and then other parts of the world into Palestine, it was also a genocide, and an ongoing genocide, which has now, in the last 7 months, been accelerated beyond and accelerated with state-of-the-art weapons and also strategies and tactics that are, frankly speaking, diabolical. So for me, as an American, my taxpayer dollars are funding this, and I am complicit. And also for me, as a person of faith, I am a Muslim, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon, taught me that if you see something that's wrong, change it with action. And if you can't change it with action, change it with words. And if you can't change it with words, change it with your heart. And of these, the last is the weakest. So for me, putting my body on the line is the best thing I can do. And may Allah accept this action, and may it bring justice, inshallah.
I mean, inshallah. Carlos and Maria, from your side, and it's a similar question, but slightly different as well. You obviously have spoken about taking the fight to Nancy Pelosi and other elected leaders within the United States. But when you've arrived in Istanbul, obviously it brought together people from all over the world. I think more than 35 countries are represented in terms of the various activists that have come together. From your side, what has your experience been, and what have you learned from engaging with other activists around the world and their way of doing activism?
Good.
It's been incredibly powerful. It has been so inspiring to meet so many people from all over the world. I'm just scratching the surface of getting to know people and hearing their stories, hearing what brought them here, but then also hearing the struggles of their home, of the places where they come from, because all of this is interconnected. U.S. imperialism, colonization, settler colonialism, as Susan spoke to, all of these struggles are very interconnected. And there is so much power in that room. Every day we have a meeting at 7 o'clock, and every day new speakers come and new people share their stories. And there is so much power and so much history and so much resilience and hope. And it's really incredible. I've learned so much about Indigenous struggles in all over the world, struggles against borders, struggles for equality and freedom and justice in so many different capacities. And I feel so grateful for that opportunity. And I feel incredibly humbled that I can join this, and that people all over the world, I think, and one thing that I think many of us already know and that is being affirmed is that people all over the world see their struggle in the struggle for Palestinian liberation. Particularly Indigenous people all over the world see Israel's settler colonial project and the ongoing genocide, and they see their history, and they see their families, and they see their stories, and they see the pain that they suffer, and they say, I don't want anyone else to suffer this pain. I don't want the trauma that our people have endured to be endured by any other peoples. And we hope, and so they're standing up, and I think that it's incredibly powerful, and I'm grateful that I can be a small part of that.
Yeah, it's been extremely meaningful to get to know so many different people from every walk of life from all over the world. And we are all peace activists that are coming together because we think it's our duty, as Hiba said earlier. We feel it is our duty to be here, especially as Americans, as Susan said as well, to use our passport privilege, because unfortunately, the Western media and governments value some lives more than others. And we're here to call attention to that fact. And, you know, we hopefully will be safe, and we are here even though there are dangers. But it's been so powerful to be in the presence of these folks that are from everywhere, and so much to learn. And we've had so much great community building. I can already tell we have lifelong friends from all over the globe.
Hiba, from to your side, and I think you touched on it just from a media perspective. We've seen so many journalists in Gaza, specifically, fall victim to Israeli aggression. And the reality is that there is an importance in making sure that this flotilla, and I would think that this Freedom Flotilla has several agendas. One, we need to deliver aid. Two, we need to break the blockade. But there's also a raising of an awareness of utilizing each person that comes from their individual countries and utilizing their individual profiles, highlight what is happening. From your side as a journalist, how do you see that role in terms of you making sure that we amplify the voices of everybody that's on board, of the mission generally? And do you anticipate that, the word will get out? Because obviously there is an attempt to stifle the narrative and even frame this particular flotilla in a particular way.
Salam Alaykum. I think there is some interruption with the internet connection. So you said it's like raising awareness. It is not only about aid, yes, and the break the siege,
Yes.
but also it's about the raising awareness. Yes.
Yes, and then also your particular role in obviously making sure that the voices of everybody that is there is amplified. How do you see, or what do you, not just you, but just the journalistic or media contingent that is part of this mission?
Yes, thank you for this question, actually, Fazlin. You know what? Here, as my friends mentioned, become among such amazing group of activists from the whole world. It's I feel like I follow this experience because each single person has his or own story to reach this point, and we are here now. But what about the behind? There is like cancer survivors, there is people, they challenged their families, they lost their loved one, and they they did a lot. They bring their whole money and they stayed there and pay for the hotel night by night just to stay and to challenge the Israeli occupation and forces, and the governments around the world supported them and trying to stop us. So they are patient, they face a lot of challenges. And all of these stories, I was thinking, yes, all of us, like 300 participants or some, we are full of this experience. But what about people behind us? So I was thinking it's necessary to promote these stories. This is the connection between the people around the world from different culture. We are not individual. We are not alone. We can bring powerful when we are collectively moving. So it's amazing. We have different motivations because we have different backgrounds. Some of us have like religious motivations, some of us humanitarian motivations, and some has like personal motivation. Some of us like survivor from rapping, for example, and they feel like, okay, what happened to me? Now I feel engagement with what happening with the Palestinian women under the Israeli occupation. So this experience, as we know, the treasure not only in the purpose, but also the treasure in the trip itself, in the journey itself. And we are trying as journalists and the media practitioner in this group to just to promote, to just to deliver the stories of the participants, their experience, their motivations, their stories to our people, to our target audience in Arabic, in Spanish, in English, so we can connect the people around the world who are supporting Palestine and who are supporting justice together. Because regime and dictator regime and occupation trying to keep people divided and individual and promote hate speech. But now we have this opportunity to know each other and in certain contexts to support justice in Gaza. So it is itself like a treasure that we can take the advantage of.
Susan, to come to you, and I want to talk about or re-emphasize or circle back to this point around the risk, right? We have seen in the past that Israel has treated anybody, whether they're Palestinian, whether they're not Palestinian, with impunity. They can do whatever they want. How do you feel, or how do you, how have you mentally prepared yourself, I think, for the eventuality that there could be some sort of, I don't know, I don't want to preempt their actions, but that there would be some sort of reaction from the occupying forces?
Yes, well, we know that there will be. Israel has been, over the past few days, conducting military attacks, launching rockets from ships into Gaza. And I take this to be a sign or a message to the flotilla that we're here. So expect us to be aggressive, but more than aggressive. Although, just to say, we have been deeply trained, all of us, for full day trainings in nonviolence and nonviolent resistance. And we want to be clear that if the Israeli commandos do storm the boat, hijack the boat, each and every one of us is committed to engage in nonviolent civil disobedience. And the boat is replete with cameras, and the world will be able to see that as we basically join our hands and be on our knees in a completely submissive position. If the Israeli commandos decide to hurt us, then the whole world will see that, in fact, that what they have been leashing against the Palestinian people, they will also leash against the rest of the world, because we have a huge international contingent and a lot of people coming from Western countries of white privilege, which are allies of Israel, which will definitely strain relations. But for me personally, from the beginning, about seven months ago, well, not the beginning, but at the beginning of the genocidal attack, the recent one, I was struck by one of the commanders, the Israeli commanders, is calling the Palestinians human animals. And I put on Facebook at that time, I am a human animal. And I think what we've seen unfold is that Israel's wrath, its genocidal wrath against the Palestinians, is not stopping, it's not abating, it's only accelerating. And what this flotilla does is actually puts primarily white people and also people from many brown countries as well, but it puts internationals in harm's way. And then God forbid Israel does do anything to hurt the boat, then it becomes even more glaring that the international community that supports Israel needs to take stands against Israel, sanction Israel in the Security Council. The International Court of Justice needs to take concrete action to stop Israel in its tracks. The United States has to stop funding Israel. The United States Congress just greenlit another $26 billion to fund Israel genocide. And meanwhile, 100 people in New York City is home. So the bottom line is that in the millions, the billions, we are all Palestinians. And so we are taking this action because we want to stand in solidarity and stop these evils for all.
Carlos and Maria, and I pose the question to both of you because you're on the same frame. But obviously, there's been a lot of international pressure on Turkey, to make sure that the boat doesn't sail. And we've seen this in terms of just playing out in terms of the delay in when the boat is actually scheduled to leave. Do you think that, or let me rephrase the question, what was the role, I think, of the activists, different activists from all over the world, but specifically those from the United States, to ensure that you actually lobby to whether it is your congressman or whoever it may be, to make sure that the vote goes, or was it just the strategy based on let's use the media to put pressure on the government or governments?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you. So first, to speak on the delays, many of us have no problem to be committed for a few days delay when the Palestinians have been committed for 75 years, and their resoluteness is our resoluteness, and their strength is our strength. And maybe some have the opinion that we're just some activists on a boat bringing some aid in, but when the world powers move to prevent us from accomplishing our mission, that is a validation that this is an important thing, that it is a symbol, and that it does make a difference on the world stage. And any delay, in my opinion, is a validation of what we are doing. And yes,
they wouldn't be pushing back if we weren't forcing a political crisis for them, and that's exactly what we intend to do. We intend to to demonstrate the hypocrisy of all of the world governments who say one thing and do another. As far as pressure points, we are encouraging everyone at home, and people are showing up in force to put pressure everywhere that we possibly can. So people are putting pressure directly on elected representatives, putting pressure in media, putting pressure through their general action. And I think that especially this week, we've seen incredible grassroots action on campuses and throughout the country, and that all of these combined are the strategy. The strategy is to put pressure on as many places as possible, especially in the United States, to force a political crisis, and to let Biden know, especially in an election year, that he cannot ignore this, that this genocide will cost him the election, and that he needs to make a choice, because the people will not be placated, we will not be silent, and we will not stand down. We will not forget Gaza.
Hiba, I'm going to phrase the same question to you, but slightly differently and with a different lens, and the lens being Turkey, right? So obviously there's the pressure being applied by Western nations, but then the ripple effect is the pressure is being applied on Turkey. From your standpoint, what is the society what is the sentiment like in Turkey at the moment with regards to this flotilla? I know a few days ago there was a mass protest that was organized by the people of Istanbul, of Turkey, in support of this flotilla. So do you think the internal pressure vis-a-vis the external pressure, like what is the balance, and where do you think that will leave this particular mission?
Okay, you can hear me. Okay. As you mentioned, it was like a huge protest a few days ago, and this 2 days ago, Turkish people and Turkish society started like sit in every day from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. and it is still going on nowadays until this flotilla sell inshallah. So what's going on now is, as you mentioned, there is a pressure from the NGOs and the societies and the activists on the Turkish government. And at the same time, there is a lot of pressure, like political pressure. And as you know, from many Western country governments, like Germany, UK, and USA, and also Arab, like Egypt, and by the way, the Israeli occupation. But as a participant, I can say all of us doesn't matter about this formula. We doesn't matter about what's going on in this political level. We decide to represent our people, and we decided to sell. And as we say always, when government fell, we sell. So we can see during the last 7 months how many governments around the world already failed to solve this problem, to cease fire, to stop the genocide, to save Gaza's people, to stop the Israeli occupation crimes. So we have to move. Whatever the situation, we will do our best to move. And if we will not do it tomorrow, we will do it one day after, a week after, a month after, even a year after, until we finish the Israeli occupation and we broke the siege of Gaza. So actually, there is a lot of pressure here and there, but we we don't depend on the decision of any government around the world. We decide to go, and we will go, inshallah.
Inshallah. Susan, I think I want to dovetail off of what Hiba said. If, for example, this mission is able to just set sail, like the first part is just leaving the shore, that in itself would be a victory, because that would show that any sort of pressure that was applied by whichever governments actually didn't work. What would be your interpretation of that? And what would you classify as the several victory points along this journey for the Freedom Flotilla?
Yeah, I think Sister Heba did summarize that pretty well. And also to say just the fact that we are here, 1,000 internationals in Istanbul, ready and waiting to sail. This is a victory in and of itself. Existence is resistance, and there have been envoys from different countries scrambling and trying to prevent us from sailing. And as Sister Heba said, they may delay us a month or a week or longer, but we will not stop until Gaza is free. We will not stop until Palestine is free. And it's not just about lifting the siege and a ceasefire. It's also freedom and liberation for all Palestinians, from the river to the sea. This is about freedom and liberation for all people living there and all people globally.
Mm-hmm. Carlos and Maria, from your side, I think that there's definitely been a sentiment around the world with regards to a sentiment change, perhaps, around the world with regards to what is happening in Palestine. And we've seen that play out. And Susan, this is a question perhaps for yourself, so you can also reflect on it as well. We've seen that play out in mainstream media in the US at the moment on university campuses, which I think is an indication that there's a conscientization taking place amongst younger people in the United States, but also around the world. And I think that this presents a hope for a new generation of leaders that possibly could emerge. But how does that, I think, kind of impact the broader solidarity campaign, just to see in mass people, camping out on campuses? And how does that actually influence where you guys are at the moment?
Yeah, I'll start by just, touching off what you said, that the atrocities committed by Western governments that were previously easy to obfuscate because of the control over legacy media are no longer possible because of social media. And, it may be cliche or whatever to downplay the power of social media, but the fact that everyone or many people on this planet have a camera in their pocket that has access to the world, the eyes of the world go and see the injustices that were previously impossible to see in real time. And I think that we are in a great awakening, and it's undeniable to see the power of the youth. We can see the U.S. government validating that power by trying to ban TikTok and to crack down on activists for social media. Even Meta in our backyard in the Bay Area has taken drastic and some behind the scenes steps to censor pro-Palestinian content. And there's no secret that that company is under Zionist control.
Absolutely. I would add to that specifically for my community as a Jewish American. We have seen a profound change and continue to see a profound change in the role of Zionism in our communities, and really a polarization as we're seeing in much of American politics. But, in my parents' generation, it was unheard of to be an anti-Zionist and Jewish. That wasn't a thing. And now I'm part of the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, and our numbers are growing every day. And at this point, there are so many of us. And it's actually incredible to see how Israel is really digging itself into a hole that I do not believe it will be able to come out of. And Israel needs American Zionism to sustain itself. American Zionism is part of Israel's lifeblood, and they are losing the youth, and particularly the Jewish youth. We are saying not in our name. We are saying that Israel does not speak for us. We are saying that never again means never again for anyone, and we want nothing to do with this genocide. And I think that I actually worked at my synagogue and taught Hebrew school, and getting to see the youngest, like really the little kids learning and not being indoctrinated into Zionism, and understanding actually that Jewish liberation is bound up in Palestinian liberation, and that we cannot be free until the Palestinian people are free, is something that is spreading. And I love seeing that in my community. And I think that we need to keep working and keep fighting and keep pushing back against the reactionary forces that would have us go backwards.
Yeah, just earlier we recorded a video to send to our comrades back in UC Berkeley's campus. Myself has been at the City Council of Berkeley, giving the Zionist mayor hell at every opportunity. And the power of the youth is undeniable. And yes, we're seeing mass mobilization independent of centralized organization. We're seeing that we know what's right and we know what to do, and we have the power because we are the global majority.
Maria, before I come to you, Susan, I just want to actually follow up on what you said, because I think it's quite profound, and I think it's something that is important for a lot of people, irrespective of their faiths, to actually hear. And so my follow-up question to what you were saying is being on the Freedom Flotilla, and essentially, it's taking the fight to Israel. Is there some sort of, I don't know, and you can guide me in your answer, but is there any sort of like conflicting identity issues? Because so often, and I've encountered a lot of Jewish people within South Africa, and they talk about this fact that Israel is so deep, like they make sure in schools that your identity as a Jewish person is so deeply tied into your identity, and that identity is attached to Israel. So for you to now actually set sail on this flotilla, what does that do internally, and where does that put you, and how do you feel as a Jewish person within that context?
It's a great question. I think I think it's complicated. In my parents' generation, that was definitely true, and I think increasingly in my generation, and certainly in the generation below me, that is becoming less and less true that our identities are tied up in Israel in that way. I do think that I'm sure that it is related to how strongly I feel the need to engage in this struggle. That the fact that this genocide is being committed in my name and being done ostensibly for my liberation feels like such a personal insult, and particularly an insult to my ancestors, some of whom were killed in Treblinka in the concentration camp. And the idea that our suffering and our resistance would be co-opted for colonialism and genocide and apartheid it is personal in that way. It feels like a personal insult to my ancestors, and that I have a personal duty to reject this, and to say that I will not be co-opted. My history will not be co-opted. My legacy will not be co-opted. So in that sense, I think there is a very personal connection for a lot of us, and it lights a fire that I know people of conscience all over the world feel, and that our particular connection in this way, I feel it in my body.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're all identifying or developing a collective identity amongst ourselves as people that stand on this side of history. Susan, I'd like to throw this particular question to you as well, just based on your experience within the political space. What do you think the impact of sort of the pressure that is rising by civil society, whether it is in the United States, but also all around the world? There's a pressure by the citizenry where they're rising up, and the political elite, they're having a particular sort of way in which they're responding. At some point, it's going to come to a head, I think, that political leaders are going to have to realize that I cannot operate without the mandate of my people. And I don't know, what does that mean? I think in the United States, especially going into the next election, I mean, so often progressive people would have said we need to vote for a Biden-like or a Democrat-like candidate. But right now, it just feels like, what are the what candidates are there available for people when everybody seems to be on the same side on this issue from a political perspective?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that question. There's so many threads I would like to tease out. But I'll start with saying, as was referenced before by Carlos and Maria, what we're seeing on the campuses in the United States, it's now upward of more than 50 universities and colleges all across the United States that are having these encampments and these demonstrations, and students are being arrested, and faculty have walked off, like in Columbia University and other places. At the same time, we are seeing violent crackdowns by police and arrests, and this is very much reminiscent of the Vietnam era and the protests to war. And so this is definitely an implosion of U.S. society when people are calling for one thing, and the vast majority of people in the United States, upwards of 70%, have said they want a ceasefire now. They don't want us to fund Israel, and yet their elected officials are continuing to fund the genocide. And so there is this breach of accountability. At the same time, we see this in Israel. Israel is a Zionist state. It is not a Jewish state. And part of the this situation has caused so many people in the United States, Jewish people, like those belonging to groups like If Not Now and Jewish Voice for Peace, to rebel against the Zionist inculcations that their parents forced upon them. And I remember earlier on in October, I was in Washington, D.C. at an If Not Now rally, which is a Jewish liberation anti-Zionist group. And I remember feeling it was the songs of these young Jewish folk. Many of them actually, LGBTQ and diverse. Their songs, and reclaiming their faith, calling to reclaim their Jewish faith that was actually never given to them. They were indoctrinated from birth to be Zionists, and they rebelled and are rejecting these empires and reclaiming Judaism from Zionism, just like Christians in the United States are reclaiming white Christian nationalism and from what is being taught by our governments or proclaimed to be part of their Christian faith, and looking more closely at what would Jesus do in this situation. Certainly Jesus would not bomb anyone. And by the same token, for people of my faith, the Islamic Muslim faith, we need to see that Palestinians are being defended by so many people in the world who are actually LGBTQ, and we need to also reclaim our faith and stop having biases against people who are not heteronormative. So this is an awakening for all of us. And we are seeing the world shift. And I do believe, just as the flotilla is about to sail, and as these campus nonviolent campus eruptions for Palestine and Gaza liberation are occurring, that there will be a change. And just a note, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition is sending a letter of solidarity to the students in the United States, and we hold each other up in this time.
Hiba, and I want to pose this similar question, but on a different angle, right? So we've been speaking now about the US and Western countries and their responses to the Freedom Flotilla, one, the what is happening in Gaza, and then just broadly our relationship with Israel. From your side, obviously, and you can, I think you can speak as a journalist, but also as an individual, living in either a Muslim or an Arab country. We've seen that, or we know from a sentiment perspective, that the Muslim or the Arab people implicitly are pro-Palestinian. But the governments in the vast majority of Arab or Muslim countries are completely silent. So on the one side, we can look at the United States and say, look at the hypocrisy. But then we also look at the Muslim and Arab countries and say, but now where is the leadership here? Do you think, and it's a similar question to the one that I posed with regards to Susan, do you think at some point it's going to come to a head, specifically on the Palestinian issue, because nothing is happening, largely speaking, from the vast majority of Muslim/Arab countries?
Actually, I would like to thank you about this question because I will speak as an Egyptian, and Egypt is the closest. Yani Gaza is like part of our heart. So, as an Egyptian, we used to stand up to solidarity with Gaza, to support our people in Palestine. Since I was in the university, the second Intifada, Al-Aqsa Intifada, and we went through all of this support activities. And by the revolution in Egypt in 2011, we started to do more and more and had hope to free Palestine soon after the Arab Spring. So, but now, after the last 10 years, I can see me and my generation, we shocked by the dictator regime and the military regime, which control everything in our country. So we can see the results now. But what I believe in is that more than 100 million Egyptian and around 400 million Arabs people are willing to be in my place now. And they feel like I'm grateful, and I feel lucky to be here because we can see the governments in our country, especially the country beside Gaza, Jordan, Egypt. We can do something for our people in Gaza. And now we are sailing through the Mediterranean Sea, but actually Rafah is closer than that. But during 7 months, we can see what happens with the humanitarian aid already collected on the board, on the cross Rafah. So I believe in the power of the people, and I believe in the power of my people, but the political control. We have fight against the dictatorship before we, and in the parallel we fight against the occupation.
I think that's a very valid point. And so I think what we're going to do is I'm going to do one round of questions before before we wrap up. And Susan, I'll start with you. Just in terms of your message before you embark on this journey, it's a journey of uncertainty, obviously. And what would be your message to anybody that is watching to say, how can we help? How can we assist? How can we amplify what you guys are doing?
I think, we're all in different contexts, and we all have different ways of showing our solidarity. People of financial means, for example, can certainly donate. They can fund UNRWA, or donate to different charities, if you will. Certainly lobbying our congressional officials in the US context is very important. And we've been sending a message, there's the non-committed movement in the United States, where we've been sending the message that we are not going to vote for Biden. And certainly Trump is a fascist, but I personally cannot vote for Genocide Joe. And if people ask me, are you going to vote for him? My answer is no. However, if he changes something dramatically, which he could within 24 hours, he could turn this around. Certainly, he could never bring back the precious lives lost. But he could change things around, stop funding Israel, get the his Arab oil country buddies like Mohammed bin Salman and others to chip in billions of dollars to rebuild Gaza. I mean, there are many things, put sanctions on Israel. There are many things that we could lobby him to do. But right now, my voice is, my recommendation to the people of the United States, at least, is to make your elected officials know that in November, when it's time for elections, we will remember and we will not vote for you. And for me personally, even if that means that Trump, who is a fascist, comes into power, well, then I'm personally ready and willing to give up some of my privilege because the Palestinians have lost their lives, and so many people in so many countries all around the world continue to lose their lives due to this imperialism and neocolonialism and vast exploitation militarily and otherwise across the world. This cannot continue, even if we think of the environment. Certainly the global heating and the climate catastrophe, that's all part and woven into this existential crisis we have of empire. So we need to have a revolutionary grassroots change, and that change needs to be one of love and mutual solidarity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Susan. To Carlos and Maria, from your side, you're going to embark on probably what many would say is a life-changing journey. And as you stand at the facing tyranny right head on, what are your sentiments, or what would you like to share?
I think that to everyone that's following our journey, we welcome you along, and we welcome you to share on social media because this is, as I was speaking to before, a new flotilla that has the different eyes, and you can come with us, and we're going to try to live stream, and you can see us every day, and you can be there with us, and we need you to help us bring the eyes of the world to the illegal blockade so that we can ensure to get this aid in. And we continue to talk about Palestine until it is free and to make action.
Yeah. What I would say is, I think like as far as the journey we're embarking on as sort of a life-changing journey, I think that's definitely the case. And a common question that many people have asked us is like, are we scared? And I think the answer to that is yes, of course we are. I don't want to be here. I want to be at home in the arms of my love. But you know who else wants to be in the arms of their loves? The people of Palestine. And until everyone in Palestine can sleep in safety and freedom with the ones that they love, then I can't.
Thank you. Hiba, from your side, as a journalist getting ready to, really just be the eyes of the world with regard to what will happen on the journey. What are your views? What are your feelings? How are you feeling ahead of the trip?
I feel what?
How do you feel ahead of the trip?
Okay. Look, actually, I feel we can do it and we'll never stop until the Israeli occupation يعني finished. I can see, as my friend said, um, what happening in Gaza. We need to not only like spread the message for the whole world to see what the truth about what's going on in Palestine and we challenge the Israeli occupation, but also it's a message for people in Gaza. We are here with you because I remember the last message from my friend, my Palestinian journalist, Ola Atallah, who has been killed by the Israeli occupation in January, this January, with her family. She said, "We know that nobody care about us, but now I just want to say for her, by the evidence, the whole world is caring about each person in Gaza, about each children, about each family, about each woman. So we are caring about you people, and we are coming and put our life and our bodies in front line because we are caring about you."
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Hiba. And I think just as the broader South African and global community, we wish you well on this voyage. And thank you once again for joining us on Salam Media.
Thank you too, and I'm so sorry if there is some interruption and I didn't get your question yani clear sometime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Salam alaikum.
Thank you.
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. Those were the activists that will be part of the Freedom Flotilla, which is set to take or set sail or set to take sail over the next few days. There has been some delays over the last week. A lot of international pressure being applied on Turkey to stop the flotilla from leaving Istanbul. But we understand that, as the activists have said, that they will stay for as long as it takes so that they're able to deliver the 5,000 plus tons of aid, humanitarian aid, to Gaza and ensure that the blockade, which has been in place for the last 17 years, that it actually comes to an end. So shukran so much for joining us on Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.